Hi everyone, Cole here with the 13th episode of Questions for Cole. If you're tuning in for the first time and you want to watch more of these, you can find all the episodes on our website, www.selkirkunitedchurch.ca. Once you're there, just click on the heading Online Messages and Services at the top of the page. No questions from the congregation this week, but I did have one that came in from a friend of mine from the States that I'll get to in a minute. The other thing I want to share with you today is something that came out of our sacrilegion discussion group during yesterday's session. The theme for the day was gratitude. I came up with that topic after receiving an email with an invitation for an online course being offered by theologian and author Diana Butler Bass, whose latest book is called Gratitude. The book came out before the pandemic, but she is now offering an online course which talks about whether gratitude is still possible in times like these. Here is part of her introduction. She writes, "We all know the joy of a surprise gift, good news, or a great achievement, all of those things eliciting feelings of gratitude. But these days, full of grief, worry, and uncertainty, do not easily nurture a sense of thanks. Indeed, they seem to be gnawing away at our hearts and our hopes. So what of gratitude now, when we don't feel grateful?" And she leaves that question hanging in the air, enticing everyone to sign up for the course and get all the answers, I suppose. I have a strong suspicion that the answers will be positive. Yes, of course we can find ways to show gratitude and to be grateful even in the midst of a pandemic. I would say not only can we, but we must. Because to do anything less is to turn our backs on the blessings that God still sends our way if we're watching for them. Butler Bass says that gratitude can strengthen us as individuals and in community, and it can also subvert hopelessness and injustice in surprising ways. That's true. That doesn't mean that it will come easy. Sometimes we'll have to do some really hard looking and searching to find something to be grateful for in a given day, especially when we're facing really difficult times. But I know it can be done. I was talking to someone just last week, someone who's facing some very serious health issues at the moment. But even while she worried about her health and her future, she was still telling stories of gratitude for the people in her life who were walking with her through this time. It was very uplifting to hear her words and her spirit of thankfulness. We could all learn from that. Anyway, during our sacrilegion session yesterday, we all took turns answering the question, can you think of anything to be grateful about right now? And every one of the participants did just that. Some of them had to think about it for a bit, but they came up with something, and some had lots to be thankful for. I think we all do. So I encourage you to find those things in your life that are blessings. Maybe people in your life, maybe some friends or family or a neighbor, maybe time that you have now to focus on something you haven't had time for in a while. What is it for you? I'm grateful for every one of you who is tuning into these midweek offerings. I hope you find some hope or some encouragement in what is shared each week. Now on to the question that came in from my friend from the States this week. It's kind of along the same lines as what I just talked about. He was feeling particularly down about life last week, and he sent me this note. He starts off with sports, which is usually our main topic of conversation, he and I. He says, "Man, I miss sports so much. All of them. I watch baseball, football, and college basketball usually. Love them all." He's in his early 40s and he has 3 boys and a girl who all play sports too. His youngest 2 are still in high school. And he said, "I'm unsure what to tell them, what kind of advice to give them. What a mess we're in down here. When I was in high school, this stuff we're dealing with now was not even a thought. Would have been a joke if someone told me this would happen. Any insight would be appreciated. My oldest is going to a small college and working part-time. My 18-year-old is debating going to a small school on a track scholarship. So stressful. I'm open to all suggestions, ideas, and thoughts. Thanks." It's hard to know what to tell people when they're struggling with things, and we really don't have any specific answers for them. There's no magic formula or easy solution for any of this. But even just sharing our stories with each other can help. and encouraging each other and listening to each other. I won't read my whole response to him, but I did talk about how it's difficult to see our children and grandchildren missing out on things and dealing with stress and worry in their lives right now. On the other hand, I think we all know that sometimes it's during the more difficult times in our lives that we learn some really important things about life, and sometimes about ourselves too, like how strong we can be, or how resilient, or we learn that we're not alone during these times, or we learn who we can count on in our lives, and it's not always the ones we expected. I've also found during this pandemic that we have some choice in what we focus on. We can focus only on what we're going through personally, and it's difficult not to do that at least some of the time. And we should, because we have to figure out how best to deal with our own circumstances and our problems. But it's also important to look outward, at least some of the time, to see what other people are going through. And we'll often find people that are going through similar things, people we can talk to and commiserate with, people we can learn from, people who can support us and encourage us, and for whom we can do the same. And sometimes we'll notice that there are even people who are going through an even more difficult time than we are, and that can be an important learning for us too. I heard a story the other day about a woman who grew up in a refugee camp, and she couldn't go to school for 5 years. 5 years. That was a decade ago. Since then, she has completed her high school, got 2 degrees, and is working at her dream job and having a pretty great life. Some of those stories can help us put things into perspective in our own lives. They can also give us some hope when we see how others have been able to overcome obstacles in their lives. Hopefully we can see that God still has many blessings in store for our futures too. The hardest part, of course, is not having any kind of end time in sight for this time of pandemic that we're facing right now. So we don't really know what to say other than to try to stay positive, follow the rules, and make the best out of whatever we have right now. Some people are feeling trapped at home, but others are learning to enjoy the time at home, more time with their children or their spouse, more time for themselves perhaps. But let's keep sharing with each other. That's the most important thing right now. Our joys, our worries, our stories. One of the most important truths is that we are not alone. God created us to be in community with each other. So let's keep being the family that God created us to be. Listening to each other is good, even if we can't actually solve all the problems. All of us, our kids, our grandkids, and us too, we all need to know that we have a safe place to vent, and that we're loved no matter what happens, and that we're not alone, not ever. That's all for today. Until next time, blessings on you and your family. Watch for the positives. There'll be plenty of them along the way, I'm sure of it. And please send some questions in to me at cole@selkirkunitedchurch.ca. Love to hear from you. Be well, everyone, and I'll see you next time.